You know what changes everything? The moment you stop waiting for permission. The moment you stop looking around for someone to validate your dreams, to tell you it's okay to move forward, to give you that green light you think you need. That moment when you realize that the person you've been waiting for is you, that's when your life transforms completely. Look, I want to talk to you today about something that matters tremendously. It's about moving forward when you feel alone. It's about getting ahead when the support you hope for simply isn't there. And I'm going to tell you something right now that might sting a little bit, but it's also going to set you free. You don't need anyone else to make your life work. You don't need their approval, their encouragement, or their belief in you. What you need is already inside you, and it has been there all along. So many people spend their entire lives waiting. They wait for their parents to understand them. They wait for their spouse to support their vision. They wait for their friends to cheer them on. They wait for the right circumstances, the right economy, the right moment when everything lines up perfectly. And while they're waiting, life is passing them by. Years go by, and they're still in the same place, still hoping that someone will show up and make it easier. But here's what I've learned, and what I want you to understand right down to your bones. The universe doesn't reward waiting, it rewards action. It rewards people who move despite their fear, who act despite their doubt, who keep going even when everyone around them says it can't be done. The universe responds to your energy, your intention, your willingness to say yes to yourself, even when everyone else is saying no. You see, when you came into this world, you came in with everything you needed. You didn't arrive here broken or incomplete. You arrived here whole, with infinite potential, with a purpose that only you can fulfill. But somewhere along the way, we get programmed. We get taught that we need others to complete us, that we need external validation to know we're on the right path, that we need the crowd to applaud before we can feel good about ourselves. And that programming is what keeps most people stuck their entire lives. Think about it for a moment. Think about all the great achievements in human history, all the breakthroughs, all the innovations, all the art and music and literature that has touched millions of lives. Almost every single one of those things came from someone who was willing to stand alone. Someone who was willing to be misunderstood. Someone who kept going when everyone else thought they were crazy. The Wright brothers were laughed at. Edison was called a fool. Every person who has ever done anything significant has had to face the naysayers, the doubters, the people who couldn't see what they could see. And the only difference between those who made it and those who didn't was that the ones who made it refused to let other people's opinions become their reality. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be saying, but it's hard to do it alone. It's hard when your family doesn't support you. It's hard when your friends don't understand. It's hard when you're the only one who believes in what you're doing. And you're absolutely right. It is hard. But you know what's harder? Living a life of regret. Dying with your music still inside you. Reaching the end of your days and wondering what might have been if you had just been brave enough to try. The truth is, being alone in your pursuit is actually a gift. It's a gift because it forces you to develop inner strength. It forces you to cultivate self-reliance. It forces you to connect with that higher part of yourself, that infinite intelligence that's always there, always guiding you, always supporting you, even when no human being is. When you have no one else to lean on, you learn to lean on something far more powerful. You learn to lean on the universal force that creates worlds, that turns acorns into oak trees, that guides salmon upstream and birds south for the winter. That same force is inside you, animating you, breathing you, living through you. And when you tap into that, when you align with that, you become unstoppable. Let me tell you something about how this works. Everything in this universe is energy. Your thoughts are energy. Your beliefs are energy. Your focus is energy. And energy attracts like energy. So when you're constantly looking outside yourself for support, when you're constantly focused on what's missing, when you're constantly telling yourself the story that you can't make it without others, you're sending out that energy of lack, of incompleteness, of dependency. And what does the universe send back to you? More situations that confirm that belief. But when you shift your focus, when you start seeing yourself as whole and complete exactly as you are, when you start acting from a place of inner certainty rather than outer validation, everything changes. You start attracting different circumstances. You start attracting different people. You start attracting opportunities that weren't there before, not because the world changed, but because you changed. You changed your energy, and the universe responded. This is not some mystical idea. This is how life works. This is physics. This is the law of attraction, the law of correspondence, the law of cause and effect. You are the cause, and your life is the effect. Always. No exceptions. The moment you truly get this, the moment you truly own this, you stop being a victim and you become a creator. Now, let's talk about what it means to get ahead when no one is there for you. First, you have to understand what getting ahead really means. Most people think getting ahead means accumulating more stuff, more money, more status, more recognition. And while there's nothing wrong with having those things, that's not what getting ahead is really about. Getting ahead is about growth. It's about becoming more of who you really are. It's about expressing your authentic self. It's about contributing something meaningful to the world. It's about living in alignment with your highest values and your deepest purpose. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need anyone's permission to do any of that. You don't need anyone's help to grow. You don't need anyone's approval to express yourself. You don't need anyone's support to live your purpose. You already have everything you need inside you right now. You have creativity, you have intelligence, you have intuition, you have determination, you have resilience, you have courage. Maybe you've forgotten about these gifts. Maybe they've been buried under years of conditioning and criticism and disappointment, but they're still there, and they're waiting for you to claim them. The first step to getting ahead alone is to make a decision. You have to decide right now in this moment that you're done waiting. You're done hoping someone will save you. You're done looking for external validation. You're done letting other people's opinions run your life. You're done playing small to make others comfortable. You decide that from this point forward, you're going to be the author of your own story, the captain of your own ship, the master of your own destiny. And when you make that decision, really make it, not just think about it, but commit to it with every fiber of your being. Something shifts in the universe. Doors start to open. Resources start to appear. Ideas start to flow. It's like you've been pushing against a locked door your whole life, and suddenly you realize the door was never locked at all. You were just pushing when you should have been pulling. The second step is to get clear on what you want. Not what your parents want for you, not what society says you should want, not what would make you look good on social media. What do you actually want? What makes your heart sing? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do if no one was watching? What would you do if money was no object? You need to get honest about this because you can't hit a target you can't see. And so many people are aiming at targets that aren't even theirs. They're living someone else's dream, following someone else's path, trying to fit into someone else's idea of success, and then they wonder why they feel empty even when they achieve their goals. Your purpose is unique to you. Your path is unique to you. Your gifts are unique to you. There's something you came here to do that only you can do. And the moment you start honoring that, the moment you start moving in that direction, everything starts to align. But you have to be willing to tune out the noise and tune into your inner guidance. The third step is to take action. This is where most people get stuck. They have the decision, they have the clarity, but they wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect circumstances. And those perfect conditions never come, so they stay stuck in preparation mode, in planning mode, in I'll do it when mode. But action is what bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the first step, and then the next step will reveal itself, and then the next one. That's how it works. You move forward in faith, trusting that the path will unfold before you. And yes, you will make mistakes. Yes, you will stumble. Yes, you will face setbacks and obstacles and challenges. That's part of the process. That's not evidence that you're doing something wrong. That's evidence that you're doing something, period. The only people who never fail are the people who never try. When you're moving forward alone, when you don't have a cheering section, when you don't have people telling you you're doing great, you have to learn to be your own cheerleader. You have to learn to validate yourself. You have to learn to celebrate your small wins, to acknowledge your progress, to be gentle with yourself when things don't go as planned. This is where self-talk becomes critical. Most people have a vicious critic living inside their head, constantly telling them they're not good enough, smart enough, talented enough, worthy enough. And when you don't have external support, that internal critic can become overwhelming. It can paralyze you. It can stop you in your tracks. But you can change that voice. You can retrain your mind. You can choose what you focus on. Every time that negative voice shows up, you can thank it for trying to protect you and then redirect your attention to something more empowering. You can ask yourself better questions. Instead of why can't I do this, ask how can I do this? Instead of what's wrong with me, ask what's right with me. Instead of why doesn't anyone support me, ask how can I support myself? Your mind is the most powerful tool you have. It can be your greatest asset or your greatest liability. When you learn to direct it, when you learn to use it intentionally, you become capable of things you never thought possible. You start seeing opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. You start seeing possibilities where before you only saw limitations. You start seeing yourself as powerful where before you saw yourself as powerless. Another crucial element of getting ahead alone is learning to be comfortable with solitude. We live in a world that glorifies busyness, that glorifies being constantly connected, that makes you feel like something is wrong if you're spending time alone. But solitude is where the magic happens. Solitude is where you connect with your true self. Solitude is where you hear the whispers of your intuition. Solitude is where you recharge and renew and remember who you really are. When you're comfortable being alone with yourself, when you actually enjoy your own company, you stop needing others to complete you. You stop looking for external entertainment to distract you from your internal experience. You start drawing strength from within rather than constantly seeking it from without. And paradoxically, when you stop needing people, that's when the right people start showing up in your life. Because here's what happens. When you're needy, when you're desperate for support and validation, you attract people who take advantage of that. You attract users and takers and people who drain your energy. But when you're whole within yourself, when you're secure in who you are, when you know your own worth, you attract a different caliber of person. You attract people who respect you, who value you, who want to support your growth rather than hold you back, but you can't get to that place by avoiding solitude. You have to be willing to spend time with yourself. You have to be willing to sit with your thoughts, to feel your feelings, to face your fears. You have to be willing to do the inner work that most people avoid their entire lives. And the inner work is not always comfortable. Sometimes it means confronting parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. Sometimes it means acknowledging beliefs that have been holding you back. Sometimes it means feeling emotions you've been suppressing for years. But on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. On the other side of that inner work is a version of you that's more authentic, more powerful, more aligned with your true purpose. Let me tell you about a principle that changes everything when you really understand it. You are not separate from the source of all creation. You are an extension of it. You are an expression of it. The same intelligence that orchestrates the entire universe is flowing through you right now. The same power that creates galaxies and atoms and everything in between is your power too. When you really get this, when you really feel it in your bones, you stop feeling alone because you realize you're never alone. You're always connected to something infinitely greater than yourself. You're always supported by a force that never judges you, never abandons you, never stops loving you. And when you align with that force, when you let it guide you, when you trust it completely, miracles start happening in your life. This is not about religion, by the way. You don't have to believe in any particular doctrine or follow any specific path. This is about recognizing the fundamental truth of your existence. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are consciousness having an adventure in form. And when you remember that, when you live from that awareness, everything shifts. Now, people will tell you that you need qualifications. They'll tell you that you need degrees, credentials, experience, connections. And while those things can be helpful, they're not what determines your success. What determines your success is your willingness to serve, your commitment to growth, your dedication to excellence, your ability to add value to other people's lives. You can start right where you are with what you have. You don't need permission from some institution or authority figure to begin. You don't need someone to anoint you or certify you or approve you. You just need to decide that you're ready to start, and then start. Begin before you feel ready. Begin before you feel qualified. Begin with fear and doubt and uncertainty, but begin anyway. The world needs what you have to offer. There are people out there right now who need your specific gifts, your unique perspective, your particular way of doing things. But they can't receive what you have to offer if you're still hiding, if you're still waiting, if you're still letting the lack of external support stop you. Think about this. Every person who has ever inspired you, every person you admire, every person whose work has touched your life in some meaningful way, they all had moments of doubt. They all had moments when they felt alone. They all had moments when they wondered if they were crazy for pursuing their vision. The only difference is they kept going anyway. They didn't let the doubt stop them. They didn't let the loneliness derail them. They didn't let the naysayers define their reality. And you can do the same thing. You have that same capacity. You have that same power. You have that same potential. The only question is, will you use it? Will you claim it? Will you step into it? Or will you let another year go by telling yourself the same old stories about why you can't, why it's too hard, why you need things to be different before you can begin? Here's something else I want you to understand. When you're getting ahead without external support, you're actually building something far more valuable than if everything was handed to you. You're building character. You're building resilience. You're building self-trust. You're building the kind of inner strength that no one can ever take away from you. People who have everything handed to them, who never have to struggle, who always have support and encouragement and resources, they often lack something crucial. They lack the grit that comes from overcoming obstacles. They lack the wisdom that comes from failure. They lack the self-confidence that comes from succeeding against the odds. When you do it the hard way, when you build something from nothing, when you achieve your goals despite the lack of support, you earn a kind of self-respect that can't be bought or given. You prove to yourself that you're capable. You prove to yourself that you're resourceful. You prove to yourself that you're stronger than you thought. And that proof, that evidence, becomes the foundation for even greater achievements. So don't resent the lack of support. Don't waste energy being bitter that people aren't there for you the way you wish they would be. Instead, see it as an opportunity. See it as a chance to develop capacities you might never develop otherwise. See it as a gift that's forcing you to dig deeper, to reach higher, to become more than you've ever been. When you change your perspective on your circumstances begin to change. When you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your situation and start seeing yourself as a student in the school of life, everything transforms. The same challenges that used to defeat you become opportunities for growth. The same setbacks that used to discourage you become lessons that make you wiser. The same loneliness that used to paralyze you becomes solitude that strengthens you. Let's talk about fear for a moment, because fear is the thing that stops most people from moving forward alone. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of looking foolish. They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of discovering that maybe they're not as capable as they hoped, so they stay in their comfort zone. They stay in situations that feel safe, even if those situations are slowly killing their spirit. But here's what you need to know about fear. It's just a feeling. It's not a fact. It's not a prophecy. It's not evidence that something bad is going to happen. It's just your nervous system's way of saying, hey, this is new, this is unfamiliar, pay attention. And yes, sometimes fear is warning you about real danger. But most of the time, especially when you're pursuing your dreams, fear is just the growing pains of expansion. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, you're going to feel fear. Every single time. That never goes away. The people you think of as fearless, they feel fear too. They've just learned not to let it stop them. They've learned to feel the fear and move forward anyway. They've learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in the presence of fear. So you don't need to wait until you're not afraid anymore. You'll be waiting forever. What you need to do is acknowledge the fear, thank it for trying to keep you safe, and then do the thing anyway. Take the action. Make the call. Send the email. Launch the project. Start the business. Write the book. Record the video. Whatever it is that's calling to you, do it afraid. And when you do, something amazing happens. The fear doesn't necessarily go away, but your relationship with it changes. You realize that you're bigger than your fear. You realize that you can function perfectly well even when you're scared. You realize that fear is just one small part of your experience, not the whole thing. And with each action you take, despite the fear, you build evidence that you're capable, that you're brave, that you can handle whatever comes your way. Now, let's address something important. What about when you actually do fail? What about when things don't work out the way you planned? What about when you try your best and still fall short? This is where so many people give up. They interpret failure as evidence that they're not meant to succeed, that they should have listened to the doubters, that they should just settle for a safer, smaller life. But failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Every successful person has a string of failures behind them. The difference is they didn't stop. They didn't let failure define them. They didn't make it mean something about their worth or their potential. They extracted the lesson, made the adjustment, and kept going. When you're alone in your pursuit, when you don't have a support system to help you process failure, you have to be extra careful about the story you tell yourself. You have to be vigilant about not letting one setback convince you that you're not capable. You have to keep your failures in perspective, seeing them as feedback rather than as final verdicts. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What would I do differently next time? What am I stronger or wiser or more skilled in because of this experience? When you approach failure with curiosity rather than judgment, it stops being something to fear and becomes something valuable. It becomes information. It becomes training. It becomes preparation for your eventual success. And here's something that might surprise you. Sometimes the lack of support is actually protecting you. Sometimes the people who aren't there for you would actually hold you back if they were involved. Sometimes their doubts would become your doubts. Sometimes their limitations would become your limitations. Sometimes their fear would dampen your enthusiasm, and their skepticism would undermine your faith. When you're free from those influences, when you're insulated from that negativity, you can maintain your vision, you can keep your energy high. You can stay focused on what's possible rather than getting dragged down into what's probable according to other people's limited perspectives. So the very thing that feels like a disadvantage might actually be your greatest advantage. This is why it's so important to be selective about who you listen to. Not everyone deserves access to your dreams. Not everyone has earned the right to comment on your vision. Just because someone has an opinion doesn't mean you need to receive it. Just because someone is related to you or has known you for a long time doesn't mean they understand where you're going or what you're capable of becoming. You have to protect your inner space. You have to guard your mind and your heart against negativity and doubt and fear-based thinking. This doesn't mean you ignore legitimate concerns or refuse to hear constructive feedback. It means you're discerning. It means you consider the source. It means you only let in voices that are aligned with your growth and your highest good. And when you can't find